Some people even stayed to listen fairy tales about unicorns, so good. I have two daughters. They love unicorns, and I have so many of those at home. But today we will talk about different unicorns, those companies that are at least billion worth. That's the term that market seems to use. So, can anyone guess how many of those horses with that thing on their head is riding around us? I mean, how many 1 billion worth private companies is out there? 1,000. Close? A bit more? Any other guesses? Go, shout. 2,000. A bit less? What the end thinks? Is anyone live in the end? Guess. It's not a hard, it's just a guess. 1,300. Close. 1,403 as of last Sunday, the live data on Crunchbase. It changes almost every week. So, point is, I don't know, is it a lot or not a lot? If you really think from millions of companies out there, probably that number is not that big. But if you think that all of them together are worth more than 5 trillion now, probably there is quite a few interesting to talk about. If it's a billion worth company, then by definition, probably it's quite big. And if you think, look, most of them have more than 500 employees already, some, most even in thousands. And therefore, they should find a way to scale somehow, right? They probably already went through that hyper-growth early stage and went to that stage where actually they are quite big. So, question for the audience. Which agile scaling framework do unicorns use? LeSS. Yes, we heard one story from PandaDoc, and I checked. You are on that list, so you are one of those companies. That's right. Any other guesses? Safe. I honestly haven't heard anyone. But to be true, I didn't know that PandaDoc uses LeSS also, so that was a good learning coming here. Coming here, I thought, and I heard the only one Spotify model, which even Kniberg says is not the model and you shouldn't use it as a model, and it was a long time ago when Spotify was 300 people company, not now, but anyway, that's what I know. Thanks for the guys learned today about PandaDoc and LeSS. So probably my point, LeSS community could do a bit better job in marketing themselves, just as a note. So clicker should work. So why I came here and what I wanted to discuss with you by sharing experiences is this hypergrowth unicorns startups market really are so busy, so they are usually reinventing the wheel. Because again, obviously they are successful companies. Obviously they are doing something well. I'm 99% sure they're not doing waterfall, and very few probably or none are doing safe, because otherwise you're not going to be that fast. So question is, which in my mind, can and how we can apply, for example, LeSS ideas or others and bring those ideas to startups. So about myself, Vaidas Adomauskas, I happened to be a luck probably, or I know by design, it's up to you, to work in 3 companies that today are unicorns: Railsbank, Revolut, and lately Uncapped. Uncapped is not yet unicorn, so 2 unicorns. I will use mostly experiences from Revolut, because you mostly know about it, and Uncapped. Before that, I was quite a bit in product and agile in other companies, was founder myself, but I'll keep that part of the history for myself. If you have any questions about how hard it is to start a company, we can chat. On the other side, I always was trying to share ideas, what I do, how I work, for the reasons to learn. So in Lithuania, I have this consulting company, Agile Coach, but the most interesting, we have very, very strong Agile Lithuania community. Maybe some of you heard about Agile Tour Vilnius? Yes, some of you even have been there. So it's a great conference. It will be in a few weeks also. If you want to find another good Agile conference, Google for Agile Tour Vilnius. Volunteers are organizing a great event. Anyway, enough about me. Let's go to the topic. So 2 companies. And as everyone probably in this room hopefully knows, anything you talk depends on the context. Again, and that's always life as a consultant, right? When anyone asks a question, what's the answer? Exactly. How to do this? It depends. And so a little context. Revolut. Who knows Revolut? Okay, not to talk too much. Who knows Revolut business? Quite a few. Anyone has accounted or as a customer? Oh, a few customers. So I had a chance to run Revolut business, which basically is B2B. So if you have a business, you need to open a business account, to have a business tool. That was my responsibility. Just from the context, we had about 200,000 business customers when I joined. When I left, 500,000, so we doubled that. 500 million, sorry. Yeah, no, 500,000, 500,000. Now they have about 1 million business customers. So really kind of high load, big system. From employees' perspective, when I joined, all company was 1,300 people. We doubled to 2,000. Now they are about 5,000 people. Again, we can debate why you need to hire so many people, but it is. The business product team that I was responsible for, and when I say product, I mean cross-functional team. Engineers, back-end, front-end, iOS, Android designers, product ops, few business people, all we called ourselves product, which is, as I still see, quite rare. We're 70 people. We grew to 150 in less than a year, doubled. And now I actually don't know exactly what to decide. And the other problem, we already were distributed. Headquarters London, main engineering centers were in St. Petersburg and Moscow. We started hiring in Vilnius, Berlin, Krakow offices. So basically, by design, we were distributed from day one. Okay, another context. Second company I worked as Uncapped as chief product officer. Anyone knows this one? If you would know, it's the only reason because one of the two founders is Polish, Piotr, but you shouldn't. It's a SME lending company, so we create credit products, and we are building also kind of banking services. But the point is that I started there from almost scratch. I inherited 10 people team, and I needed to grow it, so we grew it 5 times to 55 people in less than a year. So that's a bit earlier stage, but I could use examples from Revolut, so that's all kind of good experience, so I'll share that. Other point, we were fully remote. We decided we don't have any offices, so there is no way you can go to meet your colleagues in the office because there is no offices. So that's, again, not a hybrid, not a 3 times a week in the office, but fully remote. I wrote a LinkedIn article about that. If someone wants to get into details, please find me on LinkedIn and you'll find my article. Today, I'll try not to touch that topic unless you really ask in questions, but just to narrow down the scope. Cool. So that's the context. And as I said, and actually how description says, I wrote another LinkedIn article, which is called The $1 Million Question. How do you scale a multi-product business? Who has read it? I know at least one person did. So basically you're done. The talk is about that. No, we'll get a bit more in details in that. If you want more details, you can find it and read it on LinkedIn by finding me. Oh, that's terrible. You cannot see probably anything there. This is picture basically the outcome of that article. The final structure, how Revolut business product team was organized, and basically how, in this picture, how Uncapped team was organized. I don't think you can see anything here, but I'll explain it going through the presentation. So what I would always want to start with, this crazy question, and maybe because I have chance to be a bit of consultant, when you start any organizational structure, what are you optimizing for? And it often seems a trivial question, but it raises really good debates. If you're having those debates with the founder of a billion-worth company, that debate is not that easy, believe me. Yesterday we had an open space where some of you said how to change the mindset of the founder. But I can share a few, at least, tricks or what worked for me, and hopefully you can use that. Of course, if you are a different style of company, maybe it's easier, I don't know. So when you start the question, very often you get the answer, we want to do more, right? We want to be faster, we want to do more. Basically, if my job is to get the arrows, so I want, I want to hit kind of the target of 50 arrows a minute, right? If now we have 30 arrows a minute, so maybe less will help us to do 50 arrows a minute, or Safe, or Nexus, or wherever when we scale, right? Is that the right question? Is that the good optimization goal? If you're optimizing the speed or delivery capacity, yes. But what if only one of, or none of those hits the target? Yeah, you're saying like if you're sending error, exactly. That's a very good discussion. What do you want to do? To increase from 30 to 50 arrows a minute? Because that's by design probably will increase the likelihood of hitting the target just by statistics. Or actually, we want to invest understanding what the target is and how to hit the target, right? So that's one of the kind of good points to visualize or start a discussion point. I was probably lucky that both in Revolut and a bit my earlier careers, because I was founder myself, we spent so much time on that right side of really trying to understand the business goal and get it in. And that's what we even had discussion a bit with PandaDoc today, that maybe even when you grow, it's really not easy not to forget that. But then still people come to me and say, Vaidas, no, we want to do more and we want to be faster. So this is the slide that actually you can see, maybe you can see it. It's from Agile to Vilnius 2010. And it's my slide, but I borrowed it. So actually original information is even from earlier. But I like it because it's Mary Poppins, probably some of you know. This chart on the left says that only 20% of what we usually build, features, functionality, product, are often or always used. And half of it usually is never used, right? And when we say this, but that's United States statistics, no one cares. If Craig will be here, he will say, I don't know if he will say that this is done incorrectly, and he's right because I don't trust that source also. But then I rephrase the question. Okay, that's statistics, let's not believe that. Let's look at our product. Revolut Business, Uncapped lending platform, Rails Bank APIs before. How many of those are actually used? Like how many features in our product that we are now working are actually used? What do you think is the usual answer? Is it close or far from these numbers? Close. Someone says close. With all respect, it's so close. 15 years ago or 10 years ago when I was asking this question, very often the answer was, we don't know. Nowadays, I'm more likely to work in companies when we already have data and we can tell this. And actually, it's very close. So even when you're discussing with founder, like Nick Storonsky, for example, you can say, okay, let's look at our product and really, this is the data. We can prove that this is exactly what we already built. So the point is, should we focus on how to build more, or should we focus how to try to figure out what that 20% actually is? And that's, again, at least for me, helped to open a few discussions to really focus on the outcome. And yeah, you know, if someone comes to my trainings and says how to save money or kind of improve productivity, I say just don't do that 50%, you know, half of money saved. So yeah, so today we'll try to address how to target that 20% often and always used. So now coming back to cases, this is a bit of theory, right? So you would argue, oh, Revolut, high growth company, or other company, they are amazing and great. They are, but they're always changing. So for example, I was there a year and a half and already saw three changes. When I joined, there was big decentralization move. Like we're creating really cross-functional teams. They're decentralized. Revolut Business, as I explained, has even business people within our kind of department, product department. But then you all remember 2020, COVID hit, and plus the market was telling that these fintechs are never profitable, and then founders decided that we need to prove that we are profitable. So how you increase profitability, kind of how you decrease the cost in the company? Yeah, but answer is in the middle. Let's centralize, you know? Having three copywriters sitting in one kind of retail payments team, another one in Revolut Business, some rewards team, and another one somewhere else is very inefficient. Let's put them to central team. Let's create a service desk. So if anyone needs a copy help, we will put that through Jira Service Desk. and the magic box after SLA time will throw you the amazing text that you should put on your blog post, right? Did it work? So again, the question is what you optimize for. The goal of that year was to be break-even. It did. We got to break-even in, I think, October or November that year. So our revenues were covering our costs. Did it long-term really work? Probably not, because quite soon we started moving those people back, because the text you are getting back from the black box, from people who have no clue about your product, despite the amazing copywriting skills, even myself, I didn't understand what they wrote about, so I kind of need to go and talk. So again, about the goal, right? If you really want what you optimize for. If you want to get to break even in 3-4 months, that's an easy way to do it. You just make kind of centralized functions, let people go who are not needed anymore, and that's done. If you're thinking about the target achievement, that's a different goal. So I like this formula. Always think about ROI, return on investment, not only about cost. For some reason, I don't know, as ex-project managers or whatever, we're always trying to think how to decrease the cost. In high-growth companies, we more often think how to improve revenue, how to increase the revenue, hopefully with the same resources. Okay, let's take another example from Uncapped. So as I said, it's a credit business. We're kind of giving loans for e-commerce businesses, but we said, let's build something new, totally new, bank accounts, cards, just kind of banking services. How is new product being done? You know, if I really look at that chart that I showed before, us being in the market for 20 years, or 10 years, sorry, in fintech market, I kind of know that you cannot launch banking services without a bank account and a card. You know, there is basics. You know that they will hit that 20%. So basically, my talks to the team was always, on the first stage, build basics fast, basically, as soon as you can, so that we can ship it first, you know. Then, second stage, after almost less than a month, basically, we shifted. We said, let's now fix and optimize that based on data, because we started having first initial customers they're using. We didn't need basically our QA department. The users were our QA. They told where the bugs is. They told where the bottlenecks are. And basically, we just optimized on the data. And then, once you have those basics, you realize, okay, what's next? Is it I don't know, Apple Pay of the card, or kind of building some tool to put invoices? We don't know. We are going to that uncharted territory. And that's where you start optimizing for learning. You need to do customer interviews, really listen to them, optimize your UX flows and things like that. So my point is that even within one company with basically 4 months or 6 months of lifetime, as a product department, we shifted the focus depending what was in this area, in this case, part of product department, we shifted the area depending on the time. That, I believe, gives lots of speed, but it gives lots of also confusion. Because if your teams try to optimize for quality and you're in phase 1, you really need to have that open and honest conversation. Guys, these 2 sprints, just ship through the door as fast as you can. And then, of course, you have that discussion with that senior engineer. I'm not writing the code, which is not high quality, and you know, what if there will be bugs? And it's like, that's fine. We'll have way to fix that in stage 2. So again, communication, kind of understanding your goal, and especially explaining that to our teams is so important. That's why I think scaling models is a bit lacking, because they try to prescribe you one recipe, while company is quite dynamic, so you really need to be aware of that. So just my point, I think that execution has 2 parts, which is what we do and how we do. And then I didn't add a square to what, because through my lifetime, I realized that what is way more important than how. And I'm a software engineer by training. I didn't write code in the last 10 years or so. I still pretend to say that I know how to do that. But I believe that what is more important. And that's, again, from all this LeSS conference, I was trying to ask those questions because that's what interests me. And I think as a, for example, LeSS framework could talk about that a bit more than just to implement how. So I'll focus a lot on this part, what we are building. Okay. So once you learned what to optimize for, Second step, everyone says builds cross-functional teams. I won't stop here because I hope everyone in this audience agrees with that, right? Anyone disagrees that cross-functional teams is the best to go? No? No? Good. But even when I talk to startups, now when I left kind of Uncapped, as I said, was talking to many startups, there is tendency to build these functional departments. Oh, you come to run the product, you'll get 10 product managers to manage, because next to it we have 100 people engineering team and you'll need to work with them. It's like, why? So basically then I asked the founder a simple question. What structure you think is the most efficient and you like to work within? And if you're a startup founder, what they answer? Can you guess what structure they reply? No, they're startup founders, so just think simpler. What days as a startup founder you remember as your magic, amazing, best days? Working with one team. Basically, when you were small, when you were a startup, when you were 15 people team, by design you were cross-functional because you had the kind of sales guys, the marketing, 3 engineers, your CTO, maybe your CEO, that's nimble, small team, get everything done, and it worked. So I say very simple, let's build startups within startup. Let's not call that cross-functional team, let's build small startups within organization and scale that. Especially if in startup world seems to resonate that idea because for them it's super hard to argue. Of course, the only question is how you scale that. That's good because then you pass the argument number 1, like how we align all those rockets to fly one direction and create one product, which I will touch. So yeah, and again, just putting a quote from LeSS website, borrowed, that John Seddon says, culture follows structure. Because if I cannot convince my management to actually have these startups within the startup, I kind of feel there is no way to go in and change it anyway. I think it's a bit of bluff having departments by function and then telling we are working cross-functionally. I understand it's a middle ground and somewhere you cannot change it, but especially in the early stage and stuff, I think putting structure like that really is the key, and that's what you will see the outcome kind of is here. So just following, in this case, what quotes on LeSS website says from system thinking thought leaders. So that's 2 points. The third one, I hope, or I know, is the most controversial, because I haven't seen any scaling framework written like that, and actually Scrum Guide tells not to do it. Sorry, needed a bit of water. So when we hire product owners, I tend to try to call them product owners, not product managers. I don't know why, but I just like ownership title more. We look at them as CEOs of that little startup. So basically what we are saying that you have to be product owner by definition of Scrum Guide or less, but that's necessary, not sufficient. You need to be able to be a visionary, a leader of your startup, as a CEO, founder of any startup is, of course, within constraints of all the company and real founders. And plus, you will be the line manager of that team. The same as founder or CEO is the manager of his cross-functional team in the early days. That has lots of pros and cons. So looking forward for your questions at the end, where it can go wrong. It can go very wrong, by the way. But if you get it right, you get some magic, which I will talk about. So again, I'm very eager to have a bit more discussion. Is that the right kind of way of going for? What else it does is removes that question about where the managers are in this organization. And I tend to find that all frameworks try to hide that, except maybe the new one, Unfix by Jürgen, right? He has everything drawn in there, so with magic colors. So he drew in managers also there, but all the other frameworks kind of missing the point where the managers sit, right? And this kind of solves it because they are your CEO. Let's think about 7, 12-ish people, your original team, and the CEO manages all people there. And then I borrowed this idea from Henrik Kniberg. Again, I'm not so clever. There's lots of clever people to use ideas from, right? He argues that we somehow believe that alignment is one side and autonomy is another side, right? That as a manager, I can either have alignment by telling people what to do, so do this. In this case, I say what to do, or I let them do, they are not autonomous, somehow they will figure out what to do, right? But what he argues, he says that actually they are in two different layers, right? You can have low alignment or high alignment, and you have autonomy, which you also can have low and high. If you are on this corner, which is low autonomy, low alignment, it's terrible, right? No one knows what to do, don't know how to do. They are neither encouraged to do, but that's very, very few organizations are in. It's usually a house. Most organizations are here. Why? Because to achieve alignment, we, as a managers, say, we need to cross the river. Good, we told the goal. And now, build the bridge. Your team needs to build a bridge. Go, right? So we have a high alignment. We know that we need to cross the river, but we don't have autonomy because we were told to build a bridge. How to go from here to right? How to go from this situation to have high alignment and high autonomy? Any ideas? What the manager should do? Exactly. Should ask, you said, just repeat, should ask what to do to cross the river. Or just say, we need to cross the river, figure it out how. Right? Then you give autonomy. Ideally, I think what this is missing, and what I'm trying always to do as a manager, put constraints, because they help team a lot. Maybe it's only 2 people need to cross the river every day. What the possible better solution than the bridge could be, if only 2 people need to cross one day, every day? Boat, much cheaper, you know? Maybe you build a ferry, maybe there's many other solutions, right? So putting constraints would help. But basically, the idea is, again, as a leaders, as that CEO, I'm setting direction, I'm trying not to tell how. And again, I had lovely discussions how some founders really try to design how. I'll share how we did that in Revolut. Of course, there is other corner. When you say, as a manager, I want them to be autonomous, I hope someone works on that river problem. And that's why I saw so many Agile teams. Actually, I saw quite a few organizations where they go that way. When they hire amazing Agile coaches, which they talk about all the Agile benefits, except that actually teams has to deliver, kind of do something, because they talk about boards, about sticky notes, about making people happy. And then as a C management or top management, you come and who's working on what? I don't know. They are autonomous. We cannot tell them what to do because otherwise they will be upset and will leave us because they're not autonomous anymore. No. We need to tell them the goals and then they will figure out how to do it. So how does that work in practice? At Revolut, when I joined, I was put in this structure which I figured out and liked a lot. Basically, it's a very strict KPI setting process. Basically, you have a quarterly and yearly KPIs. And they come from company level, so we have a company level KPIs. Then they split a department. As department head, you split that, and then every team derives something and splits it from there. And I guess this is not something new, but the point is that they are all business numbers driven. Because as a company, you imagine Revolut, you don't probably have on a company level KPI like, let's try to build a new feature X. It doesn't make sense. On company level, we have revenue growth targets, which are kind of business driven. And we try to get that to the team level. So basically, teams at Revolut had, for example, my goal is to increase onboarding conversion by 5% for a quarter. And then team has to come up with initiatives, ideas as the roadmap items, and that becomes what they're actually working on. Some of those might help to increase, some might not, but idea that at the end of the quarter, did we hit that business goal or not as a team? That basically brings this real product developers mentality into the team because they have to achieve the outcome, not just deliver something. A warning sign, because Nick likes formulas and everything has to make a math, so we had our bonuses attached to that formula, and that's why it didn't go well. Because there started being so much gaming, you know, how to agree on those KPIs because you want your bonus. If something changes within the quarter, you're not going to change that. So please avoid connecting any measurements, alignment system basically towards the performance because that's not linearly connected, although it's very, very tempting. At Uncapped, we used OKRs. For me, just potato, different goals. You can read the differences. But the point is that on a company level, we had objectives. And by design, we made them cross departments so that one department like product or marketing cannot achieve that. It's kind of a business, again, goal. And then we define key results. But again, key results, and what OKR says, has to be numbers and has to be business numbers. So again, the same idea as either conversions, either revenues, either something, not to deliver some initiative. Even if it's and the easy part, you connect that to SQL, which automatically gets you the data to the dashboards. So even if for some reason your key result would be launch new product, you wouldn't define that because SQL cannot return that, is it launched or not. What you define, 5 customers uses new product X. So, as a team, you still incentivize not to launch, but actually get those 3, 5, wherever the smallest possible number is to get customers to use, or, push $100 through the new payment system we build or whatever. A bit warning, one of my founders really liked to put everything in OKRs. So we had on the company level, I think 7, 8 OKR objectives at one point, which became too much. So we said we will prioritize that. I think it's better to have less, like 3, 5 that people really remember. So all your work does not need to go to objectives. Objectives are for the key work you want to achieve. There is always 30, 50% other work that you actually do as day-to-day job. That's fine. But the main point that these should be alignment tool, not kind of performance management or whatever. So to connect that to the CEO, that's for me where I think at least the magic worked. Because you have this 10, 15 small startups, for example, in Revolut business, that have different goals, expressed in business objectives, and basically they're working on that, led by CEO / founder / visionary / manager of that team, and they have little startup to achieve that. Makes sense so far? I see a few nodding yes. Wow, everyone, yes, good. Okay, so now I think we have quite a few engineers in this room. So who would like to report tomorrow, if you are a developer, senior developer, to some PO, product manager, wherever, and how you will develop as your technical skills, right? Java developer skills. Or if you're a designer, how I will be the best ever designer in the world or wherever. So we solved that by having this second layer. Sorry, as I said, due to resolution you couldn't see, but the columns in that first picture was teams run by on top product owner, as we discussed. And on the horizontal level, we have functional managers. So basically, we say you have to have functional manager. We're basically creating a matrix to extent. So we had head of engineering, head of design, head of operations, head of data that manage these skills. Their main jobs are hiring or skills interviews of the hiring, which of course, if organizations grows bigger, they share with leads into that function. They do one-on-ones from the skills perspective. So basically every person usually in our organization had at least 2 one-on-ones a week. One was about your technical skills with your functional lead, and another one with your product owner as how you work in the team and how you can develop that, which again, I think gave a very nice personal development. And even performance reviews and promotions actually are 50-50 split. So basically you share that responsibility. Formally, line manager, of course, is on the books with formal manager, but, PO, but in reality you split that. And it worked both in Revolut, it worked in Uncapped, to extend that even we created competency matrices. So basically every role has different levels, and we just designed which kind of lines are owned either by your functional manager or by your product owner as your line manager, and that's how you do performance reviews. Okay, so we have CEOs to manage. How to manage that growth, right? There was discussion, you saw, we grow from 10 to 50 people, for example. And the algorithm is very simple, nothing clever here. You hire into existing team. When teams becomes more than 9 people, you're trying to think is the right time to split. You split it, you have very small teams, 4 or 5 people. You try to hire into those teams, right? Until they again become big enough, 7 plus minus people. Nothing new, nothing crazy here, right? Can you fuck it up? I did. two things I did wrong in Revolut. First, because I really was at that time believing in co-located teams. That's why I drilled a bit few of us, including Craig this morning. Do we really need to get people co-located to really be the most effective? And at that point, I believed in that very much. So you remember the context. We have at Revolut, my main engineers are sitting in Moscow and Petersburg at that time. Product owners and designers mainly sitting in London. So we, by design, already have all the teams are distributed. Every team, every meeting they make is already in at least across 3 locations. How to do co-located teams? We are building new products. Let's hire the payroll team, cross-functional, product owner, back-end, front-end, iOS in Vilnius, expansion team, for example, in Berlin. So at least we will try it out, what it means to be really co-located. Sadly, it failed. Why? Anyone can guess? Oh no, they wanted. Actually, that was a selling point. When I was hiring in Vilnius, I said, you will have all cross-functional teams sitting together, you will have lunches together. They said, wow, amazing. I mean, people love working together instead of every meeting having on Zoom call already before the COVID times and kind of that as a product owner, my engineer will be in London, Petersburg, and then, no? Yeah. Because it was quite a new product, so that also was not the big issue. They actually, it's good, they huddle and they do their job. But actually, that's the problem. Because they are part of big organization. And if you create a totally new team, I would say of all the rest of the organization, how they learn the structure, how they learn coding practices, they really need extra mile to go and ask for these things. So yeah. So after half a year, we stopped doing that. We put, basically the algorithm was as I wrote before. So all teams were distributed, and we split the team, and then the existing team shares the knowledge for newcomers, and that's what's much easier to manage, especially in a high-growth environment. And second thing, which also failed, is, I think someone mentioned today, it's so tempting to split too early. Oh, we have new idea to develop, and you immediately see you have 5 teams that are just 3 people or 4 people. And so again, just a reminder, I think everyone hopefully knows that don't split the team until you have 9 people at least in it. Oh, we just hired a product owner, so he kind of needs a team. So let's split it, and he will be a team for now. And of course, we'll hire 3 engineers very fast. That very fast might be next 3 months, but still, you know. No, don't do that. Really, so in Uncapped, I even had the rule, we never split the team if it's less than 9 people. As simple as that, just to protect ourselves and myself from having too many small teams. Then, of course, you manage it through one backlog, which is good advice of LeSS. It's less management. Okay, so after that, the final bit basically is, so how do we align? How all those little startups fly in one direction? And I didn't come up with anything else. I read lots of scaling frameworks, including LeSS, Safe, and Nexus, and Fix, and all that, and just created this, which I think very, very much reflects to LeSS, which we'll see soon. So basically, every team can run their own process as they want. Mostly use Scrum, some use Kanban, I don't care. They are running their own process. On top of that, we had weekly prioritization meeting, basically, where we weekly meet with all product owners and functional heads, and we basically see what changes and always work on the backlog. So in essence, we have one company backlog, which we all kind of move around. And that's kind of how we achieve if something changes or we learn new data, we can very quickly adapt, right? As we were so much passionate about user experience, and we want one user experience for the customer, not 12 user experiences for the customer, we have 12 teams. We had weekly design reviews. So basically, designers with product owners were presenting every week what they did, kind of what's going on in kind of user experience, because we design user experience first. So that was kind of how we ensured that payments team doesn't do differently than the cards team. So kind of common components was imposed through this process. We had a weekly product demo, nothing new. Every team's presented to all the teams what's happening, and with us sharing and being proud and all that. Retrospectives, again, nothing new. Teams have their own retrospectives. They bring what issues they have. Again, on the company level, we see what we can improve and visualize that. And last but not least, as a product leadership team, we needed to have operational meeting, about hiring, day-to-day tasks, and things like that. Again, someone could argue this is lots of meetings. Maybe you can decrease number of meetings. And we tried until clever people said that having less meetings really does not help. What helps, having a real focus of each meeting. So for example, at some point we merged number 5 and 1, and that just didn't work because you have a different mindset. It's much better to have shorter meetings, but focused. So now we solve operational issues. I don't know, next day on Tuesday morning or whatever, we do the backlog kind of refinement meeting. So just advice, don't try to save time by merging different topics to one meeting. That usually works backwards. And what I was trying to achieve, basically, why not, this is not kind of central top-down. So this is a good book, Radical Candor. As an Eastern European, Lithuanian myself, now living in UK, we try to talk direct, but in Revolut style was always being open and direct and kind of being able to tell what you want to tell. So for example, design review is not a reporting review designers to myself or to head of design. It's actually a discussion between designers so that any designer would challenge the other designer with ideas and help each other to improve. For that, you need to create a culture where people are okay and happy to talk about that, which that book is about. And to do that, at Revolut, actually we were, I think, quite bad at that. We always focus on the top, if you see here, results. Anyone read 5 Dysfunctions of a Team? Few. If you haven't, I really suggest, it's a great book. They basically, it's a basically fairy tale again, so it's easy to read. But basically, what Patrick argues that if you focus only results, you will miss it. And that's, I think, what we were lacking at Revolut. You really need to build trust so that teams would be able to be openly ask those and tell those what they think. So they commit, they have accountability, and that's how you achieve results. So again, just to stress that these meetings are not bottom-up, top-down, not reporting meetings, not status reports. They are workshops encouraging product owners, designers, or developers in those forums to share the information and challenge each other. Because we spend time building these kind of trusts within the team so they are okay and they know they won't be punished if they ask a stupid question or whatever. And that's it. So this is the structure which you saw at the beginning. It's on the article, so you can find it in a good resolution there. But basically, columns are teams, which you scale. Horizontal are functions, and you see you have here head of function. So my kind of product leadership team is all heads of functions and all product owners. That's what I call product leadership. But as you see within, there are, depending by the team, cross-functional team. And by cross-functional, I don't mean only back-end and front-end engineer. I mean also including designers, also including product operations, skills you really need to get. So I have 1 minute left, I think, or 2. So where are we doing less? You cannot read this, and you shouldn't. This is a copy-paste from LeSS website, so I'm sure you all know that by heart, right? LeSS website has three points. First one is structure. So what we didn't do is red. We definitely were not collocated. In Revolut, we were distributed. In Uncapped, we were fully remote. And we're not long-lived because every team, basically, after months and a half, was split because we were just growing so fast. So you cannot have a long-lived team because you're just hiring so much people. You have to figure out how to achieve that through other means. And at Revolut, we didn't have Scrum Masters at all. So product owners had one more responsibility to be responsible for the processes, which I think was a bit too much overhead. That's why at Uncapped, first Scrum Master that we hired was Chris, once we had more than 2 teams to start managing and helping us with the processes. So that was good, I think. On the product side, we were doing everything except, you could argue, did we have one product owner, one backlog? We had product owners in each team. I was the chief product owner, chief CPO, chief product officer. And as I said, we had one company backlog anyway. Every team had their own backlogs, just for simplicity reasons, but they were always aligned with the one top company one. And in a sprint perspective, we just didn't do sprint planning 1 as the LeSS. We actually had this prioritization meeting between mostly product owners and designers included. So we made all the changes and plans, and then they get back to the teams and did that together. Because again, we could not, in any chance, to get all people in one room and do that. So that's it. That's experiences. I hope some ideas are okay. And if you have any questions, let me know where to drill down and what to answer. As a wrap-up, to finish, I still believe, yes, startups, high growth, it's so much to do that really you are in that doing mode, and it's so hard to get your head up and see what's out there. And maybe reinventing wheel is not the best option. Maybe borrowing those ideas is good, despite the fact that successful ones really work it out well. I mean, we hear about now Google's and Facebook's, how they did well, but by the way, they're not startups anymore. They're huge corporates, but they were. But just remember that out of those 1,400 companies that are now unicorns, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands that die or are way less worth, right? So you have increasing, by, I think, reading around, you really increase your chances. So takeaways, I think LeSS is suited. It worked for me, at least, in a couple organizations, although none of them actually called it LeSS. In Uncapped, I, for good reason, did not talk about LeSS for a bit, not to scare people. They were scared about Scrum already, so why to use the word? We did that instead of talking about that. Yeah, it's a huge opportunity for LeSS community. And as I said, I think if LeSS community would do a bit more job, being more proactive, more vocal, and we, like the guys from Unicorns, talk about that, maybe there is a chance that there will be more unicorns, more happier places to work, and more amazing products for us to use. So thanks for your time. I really am happy. I put this question, I wanted to change today after hearing you, but I thought I'll leave it. I hope in the next LeSS conferences we'll be able to hear more and more experiences, not only from big companies doing kind of scaling and using LeSS as a way to be faster, but also from high growth companies, unicorns, sharing examples from those. I think this is a huge opportunity for all of us. Thank you, and look forward for your questions.
So it still looks like other panels are still not finished, so maybe we could use this time for questions and wait for others.
Question about the decision to split the teams. Who is actually making the decision to split the teams, and if it's not the team members, why it's not the team members?
You mean split the teams when we grow?
Yeah, when you grow.
Interesting. Because that happens kind of organically, most likely, because if you're hiring, let's say, we are hiring people towards, cards team. That by design means we want to do something more there. For example, have a spend management. So when you spend on the card, you can attach a receipt and then kind of do that. So honestly, I think as a head of kind of chief product officer, I was doing that decision, which areas we want to invest more. It's just the point was, don't split the team too early, but kind of grow that team, explain that you guys now your even scope increases. Therefore, at some point we will need to split you.
Okay, and the second question, that's on your slides. You have like multiple owners with the teams, and you're saying that you have this common backlog for all of them, and you prioritize them weekly or something like this, right? How you manage the conflict, because they looks like they're related to some domain of the business or functional areas, I don't know how to call it. So if I'm like a one who is about the peer-to-peer payments, I want to do only peer-to-peer payments with my teams. How do you manage this mental and physical conflict? I know.
Exactly. So that's why we work so much on, even if you have a name on your team, don't attach to it, because you might, everything is so interconnected. That's the problem, right? There's never black or white. There's always gray zones. So there could always debates where about those gray zones. For example, onboarding to a bank, in our case, business accounts, which team should take that? Or if I want to add cards functionality in onboarding, so during onboarding you already order a card, should it onboarding team do it or cards team do it? So basically what those debates were, due to current constraints and current situation, as a team of product owners, which makes the most sense for the business, because we have kind of company objective to achieve and teams has their own objectives. And that honest and transparent conversation about objectives allowed us to make that decision without saying, oh, I'm cards team, so it's my job to put it on onboarding. No, I'm onboarding team, you touch onboarding. So we try to avoid that by talking and being open that the main goal is company objectives and we as a team trying to achieve that. But it's a gray zone, and that's where there's some debates and you just need to work it out.
Hello, thank you for the talk. I want to share, first of all, some feelings. So when you share the story, I believe that several of us have seen such structures. And then I have a little bit confused feeling when you show the conclusions of the talk, like many companies are using less like structure, because for me the structure looks like more like, I don't know, let's imagine that it was 20 teams, cross-functional, with 20 product owners. So it's like feature areas. So one feature area for one team, which is not very less like structure, with their own mini CEO. So I have a few questions, if you don't mind, and one of them about functional managers, how it's correlate with creating cross-functional teams with multi-skilled, multi-learning specialists inside. Because I can imagine that these functional managers was like JavaScript guru, some iOS guru, Android guru, not a full stack guru who will help others to create communities and learn from each other. So can you emphasize a bit about this personal development, skills development, multi-learning first, and then I'll have a few more questions if others don't mind.
Thanks, lots of questions. And yeah, as I said, I'm not claiming we were doing less. Our goal was to grow the business, and retrospectively, I'm looking how far we are from less. So you're right there. Functional managers, yes. At Revolut, we had basically, you could argue, 4, which was backend, frontend, iOS, and Android. And in Uncapped, we have 2, backend and frontend. So yeah. But again, I did not see too much issues with that because every team had all these a person in each skill. So every team had a backend, frontend, iOS, and Android developers.
Okay. How many full stack developers you have in company?
In Revolut, in Revolut business, not to call it Revolut, none. We were all either backends, either frontends, either iOS and Android.
Okay.
None.
So mostly single skilled.
Sorry?
Mostly they were single functional specialists.
Correct. When we were hiring you for either backend, either frontend, either Android position.
Okay, and the second question is about OKRs, KPIs, and stuff like that. So what I've seen in my experience, if you put some OKRs on the team and you say like it's not about every task they are working on, some part are like operational tasks, it might provoke some conflicts between teams. If my team needs something from you to finish my job, and I will say, guys, please change API a bit so we can use this resource, blah, blah, blah. And you will say, no, it's end of quarter. We need to deliver our OKRs, otherwise I will not get my bonus or salary increase. How often have you seen such occasions in Revolut setup?
So you answered your question, which I said it's a warning. As long as the second you connect that to the rewards, that's where you had the problems, and that's what we had. And then, I need to play politics, work with other heads of departments, like if we need even from them something to make sure that, either it's really planned for next quarter, because that's the only way basically to get it. Once we at Uncapped, once we removed that, it's helped because decisions became very healthy, because always the first questions, how we can help the most company level objectives and key results, and only secondary our team's objectives. We can change them if they don't make any sense after a month or two.
So it looks like there are more questions to you, but maybe could you just find Vaidas and ask those questions directly, because
I'll be
the
here,
time
so
box is over.
feel free.
Thank you
very much
for the talk.